We'll go over some ideas for Bones Hyland being traded. We'll talk about who in the Western Conference can make a significant move to threaten the Nuggets with a trade. And we'll preview the Wolves game, a revenge spot for the Nuggets. Grrr, all this and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us, making this your first listen. We appreciate you guys joining us on all platforms, whether you're hanging out with us on YouTube with folks like Kelvin and Mihailo Stojanovic, the Oso Blanco hanging out with us, Josh Winninger in here, Kelvin Wong, got lots of folks hanging out with us in the chat on a Tuesday. On today's show, we will talk about the Bones Hyland situation. We will go over some potential trade options and how likely we think they are, if they're doable, and what they would mean for the Nuggets. We will talk about the Western Conference and if there are moves to be made by other West contenders that could move them closer to being able to match up with Denver in the playoffs and beyond. And we'll preview the Wolves game, a revenge spot after the loss on Sunday, as well as a key matchup for Denver to break a losing streak. Want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. You can catch all of my content over in the Action Network app, including my new trade rumors column, the Intel column, as we're calling it. Lots of stuff in there, including a piece about the Nuggets and some names that they have some interest in. They're not going to get any of those guys, but there's some names in there that at least I've heard that they've expressed some interest in. So you can check that in the Action Network app. His name's Adam Morris. He's director of content for DNVR. You can check out all of his content over at DNVR, as well as the pre and post game shows before every Nuggets game, daily podcast with Adam and the crew. Make sure to check out all the great stuff, as well as the merchandise, and check out the DNVR bar, the best place for you to watch Nuggets games, Avs games, pretty much every Colorado game you can imagine is at the DNVR bar. Do you guys have an app yet? Why don't you have an app yet?
They're expensive, man.
They're expensive? They're expensive? Really? You have so many devoted members of the cult. None of them will do. None of them are programmers that will do the work. Come on, man. Get an app. All right, we're gonna talk about Bones. So no Bones Hyland trade yet. That deal has not gone down. But Adam has a list of names for us to talk about as potential options for the Nuggets to trade for, and we'll talk about whether or not we think that those are good options, bad options, if they're realistic or not. We'll go through just a handful of those names. Second segment, we'll talk about the Western Conference and more of the trades for other teams that they could make. Where do you want to start on the Bones discussion, Adam?
Well, the most likely one to me, which maybe it's not the most likely, but I think one of the more likely ones, I'm going to say the 25th pick in this year's draft. Because I think when you say first round pick, you have to assume it's like one of the 5 bottom picks.
Yes. This is reported by Mike Stinger that they have traction for a first round pick. I will tell you that my perception is colored by like the league. I do not think that that's gettable. And that's based off of the fact that Eric Gordon's not going for a first. Mike Conley, Jared Vanderbilt, and who's their other guy that they're trying to move? Beasley. There hasn't been a move. Like, if there had been a first-round pick offer that was quality for any of those guys, they would have been gone, and those players have more value than Bones on the market right now. So, like, I have a hard time finding a team that's going to be like, yes, we'll send a first-round pick for this player in this situation with where Denver's leverage is at. Like, I personally don't think that will happen. What do you think?
I think you're probably right. The funny thing about it to me is, this is the funny thing about trade season, is every year, every analyst will do the holier than thou. That would never happen. And then every year they're right on 90% of trades. And then there's the 10% of trades where you're like, what were they thinking? Why did a team make this crazy move? So I'm with you outside of that scenario. And I will say that Bones represents to me a player who could fit that scenario. You could be a GM that's just extra high on him, or we're extra high on him and likes some of the indicators. But I tend to agree. If I were betting, I would say that would be great return given my expectation.
Yeah, and I mean, if here's a very key kind of component here is what Denver could do is swap Bones for a first, and then if possible, then move that pick for another player, right? Like that's like an option, and whether they include it in a 3-team deal or not, that's maybe like the best option here is to move Bones for a first, use that to acquire a veteran that some team is looking to offload with. If they haven't gotten a first round offer for it, that's the best offer on the board. I will say that consistently I hear frustration from people around the league and these types of matters in regards to oftentimes a player will get moved and I will call and say, like, didn't you have an interest in that guy? And the person on the other end of the line will go, yeah, would have been nice to have just gotten the call just so we could have tried to match. Like, they didn't even call us. They just did it.
I think this is the other part of it, man. Like, is that the NBA? I think people have this idea that it's this logical, the best deals happen, like the most logical deals happen in the most logical ways. And I just don't think that's it. I've heard too many stories, including dealings with the Nuggets in years past, where the way the deals came together are almost frightening, like the order of things and how they went. I've heard a story one time of a team who on draft night had been trying to make a trade for months and it got no traction on it. And then while they were on the clock, received the first call ever from a team making an offer. They accepted it on the spot and the trade happened. And it's one of those things where they're like, we've been calling you and asking you this for months. You never said anything. And then all of a sudden at the 11th hour, you call them with the offer. So yeah, I mean, I think that the way NBA trades work are different from what fans' expectations are.
Osa Blanco, I do want to get to this question real quick. If we can't trade Bones for something we want, will he be back in the rotation for us? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think might be the better play. I mean, honestly, like there is a scenario in which Bones just not playing and being out of sight, out of mind, maybe repairs his value a little bit. Like, well, he wasn't a distraction and he's still a young player. Now you have an off season and teams are making, more moves are made in the off season than at the trade deadline. So maybe. Yeah, but I would agree that I don't think you bring him back in.
Yeah, a lot of this I think is just when he left the bench. That was a crossing of the Rubicon moment, I suppose is the term to use there. So
I agree with that.
I don't think there's a way back in.
I think there's a way back in. I don't think like if somebody got hurt, I think he would play. To me, it's more.
Yeah,
Denver has found Michael Malone. I think has got the freedom to kind of move on. And now with that freedom, it's like it becomes easier.
Yeah. They've also been better, as somebody else noted in the chat. Throw me another name here.
2 second-round picks.
Oh, okay. That one seems doable, right? Like that one seems doable. Teams are always willing to throw second rounders around, especially.
But is that a good deal, though? I mean,
boy, gosh, I don't know how to answer that because it's like. It's good return for where his value is at right now. Because that's where his value is. Like teams are not like, oh boy. And they know the Nuggets are where the Nuggets are at. Like the word is out that Bones is unhappy. The word is out that he's like he told Chris Haynes on national television, Haynes reported that he would welcome a trade. That kills your leverage, right? Yes.
I mean, I think that part's a little overstated. I think what more kills the leverage is probably his reputation.
Yeah.
Besides that, like if there is a non-problem, a player who has not had like maybe lost the trust of his coach or locker room or whatever, teammates, and has been performing at a high level who asked to be traded, that doesn't necessarily kill the leverage. I think it's all of the things combined, but I think it is more hey, this guy's talented, but is he going to pan out?
So this is really funny to me. Okay. So we're talking about 25th pick on average. It's let's bump it up to 29th or 28th. Okay. In the chat on the 2 seconds, we got Tamer who says, if it's 2 seconds, you keep Bones. Mahalo says no. Joe says, I'd rather just keep him. Like to me, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I would much rather it depends on the second rounder. If you're talking about
on what team, if it's like Boston, then you're probably picking 50 to 60. Like,
right.
I mean, they're going to be.
But
good
if it's like, if you're talking about, if it's a Houston second rounder,
right?
If it's like 28 or 38, I'm like, you're still getting an early second round pick and it's not guaranteed.
Here's what's interesting. Would you rather have the 25th pick or the 33rd and 50th?
33rd and 50th, 100%.
Because you think 25 and 33 are like this, more or less the same, and then you kill the juice with
it's non-guaranteed.
Right.
Like the gap between the first round guaranteed money and the second round non-guaranteed money is significant.
I will say this. I do think that basketball players are getting better, and you're finding more value in the second round, especially when you're in a team in Denver's position that can afford to be patient. Like an Ishmael Kamagate might pan out, might not, but it's the idea that you have the opportunity to say, we don't need him to pan out right now.
But yeah, I would definitely take multiple assets, even if it's like a not that valuable second, because a lot of the times teams will be like, hey, we want to save face, like throw us in these like a late second rounder. Sure, no problem. There you go.
All right, quick, let's go rapid fire here. Mason Plumlee?
No.
No, in what way?
I think it's good value. I think that well, you know what? I take that back because there's starting to be a lot of talk about him maybe getting bought out. Like there's starting to be a lot of talk about that. And like,
you were going to say that you don't think it's realistic.
I was going to say that I didn't think it was realistic, but now I've kind of turned around and I think it might be doable because like Mason's Plumlee has not been what they expected either.
Cody Martin.
That's pretty good value. That's good return for both sides because like the Hornets are able to get off of a guaranteed spot. They open up some more minutes. It gives them more flexibility. It gives them a young guy. Like I like that. I like that move.
Peyton Pritchard.
Pretty good. I think that's actually a pretty good fit. Peyton Pritchard, there's been a lot of talk that Pritchard wants out. That's kind of alleviated a little bit when he got some minutes when Marcus Smart went down, but it's going to go right back to him not playing as much as he wants when Smart's back. So I actually kind of think that just like having Pritchard as a guard that's played for a high level playoff team is pretty good return. And the Celtics get a guy that they can kind of take their development process with in Bones.
Doug McDermott.
I don't know how playable Doug is in the playoffs. And so it's just kind of like a depth move. He is a really great shooter. Guys have liked having him as a teammate. And he actually is surprisingly like good rebounder. He has pretty good size. He's definitely very gettable. Like that's a name that you could definitely do. And the Spurs, I don't know if the Spurs want Bones' headache, but if they're just like, yeah, sure, let's give it a shot, then I think that actually might be a pretty good fit.
Chris Duarte.
Probably too much. I think the Indiana can get a better offer for him. I think Duarte still has a lot of cachet. Like he was really good.
Think Bones is below Chris Duarte?
Do what?
You think Bones is below Chris Duarte?
I do. Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Chris was.
He might be around the league, but that would be a wrong index in my opinion.
Chris was really good last season. I thought
for about half of it on a terrible team.
True.
Yeah, that one would surprise me a little bit. Let's see what else you got. Cam Reddish.
I don't like this one. I just don't think Cam's an NBA player. That's just like where I'm at. Is like I just don't think. I never
problem too. Didn't he get traded from Atlanta because he was a little
yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. I don't mean to be like this, but like he's a clutch guy. like I just kind of think that clutch guys are always going to be looking for bigger situations, you know. And Denver has some clutch guys, so.
Those are the guys to me that we kind of hadn't talked about before. Some of the other names we'd probably talked about or are not that realistic.
Do you still think that the first rounder is the most likely?
I don't know. I'll be curious to see. I do think Denver moves off him. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2 seconds.
We know about Vanderbilt. I don't think that Utah is interested in Bones for Vando. That's what I think. Because I don't think. Now, what's odd there is I think that the going price right now, like there's a deal on the table for Vando that I've heard that you would be like they didn't want Bones and they took that, but like this is where it gets to. This is the other component we talked about, like the relationships and everything, but there's also just our scouting, like we just don't think he's good, like we just don't like him. You know, like if your assessment is so far below. I always talk about this in these terms. There's investor value and market value. And the investor value for Bones is very low because the Nuggets don't need him and don't necessarily want him at this point. And the market value for Bones is very low because he basically took a situation where it was like very well set up for him, got the backup point guard minutes, struggled, and then is like throwing a fit about it. It's not good. Like it's hard to raise value there.
I'll say this. Bones is a career 37% 3-point shooter, taking 11 per 36 minutes, which is like him, Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry, and Dame Lillard are the only guys that do that. I think his market value might be depressed because of this other stuff, but I do think that the way we've talked about him the last like week has been a little wild.
I want to talk about the Caruso thing. I know we're running long on time here. Bones and a pick for Caruso was mentioned. There was a report last night that there was like conversations. I reported that the Nuggets have interest in Alex Caruso. A lot of teams have interest in Alex Caruso. I'll just tell you that like I would be flat out, point blank, stunned, shocked if the Nuggets got Alex Caruso for Bones in the first. Would be absolutely floored.
It sounds like Chicago's not going to throw their play, restart over, which is how you would get him to begin with.
Yeah.
If you're trying to win, you keep Alex Caruso.
Don't think it's doable. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about what moves around the Western Conference could impact the Nuggets. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On. But first, I need to tell you about Built Bar. If you want a delicious treat without all the fat and calories, you got to try Built Bar. It's the best way for you to get healthy with a protein bar, but they also taste good. So you're not going to be like, oh God, why am I eating this? They're awesome. They're absolutely awesome. They're so delicious. And why? Because for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, which is my favorite, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. I keep a box downstairs by the treadmill just for me to have after I get off of the treadmill. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. You can run into Walmart and pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puffs. Or if you're going to Sam's, you can head on over and grab a 13-bar box with their hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar out there. Check it out at Built.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. The NBA trade deadline is approaching, and Locked On has you covered. Thursday, February 9th, tune in to Locked On NBA on YouTube at 2 Eastern to hear reaction from the trades that will change the rest of the NBA season. Who becomes contenders and who's tanking for a better future? Subscribe to Locked On NBA on YouTube and don't miss a deal. All right, so let's talk about some deals that could impact the Nuggets around the league. We can start with Warriors, Suns, Grizzlies, or Pelicans. Where do you want to start?
Warriors.
All right, so the Golden State Warriors, without Steph Curry for the next few weeks, assessment from Steve Kerr sounds like it's going to be okay. Like there's not a lot of, this is going to get bad. He's just like, he's going to be out for a little while, but we're hopeful it won't be that long. Warriors are currently 28-26. Got to win at home last night versus the Thunder. Blew them out. Klay Thompson was phenomenal in that game. But the way it kind of works out is their starters are awesome. Their bench is horrible. They need more rotation guys. The young guys have not worked out to the degree that they've wanted. I reported yesterday on Action Network, Kuminga is considered off the table, but Wiseman and Moody are not. You can make a call about those guys. They have JaMychal Green in contract salary to add together and move. So I think the question here becomes like, what's a big upgrade for them? I thought about I heard that they would not be a shocker for making an OG bid, but I also think that it'd be a mistake for them to disrupt what they've got with Andrew Wiggins and that starting unit. Wiggins has been really good for them and he fits. He's happy with his role there. I think that that's a thing. But if they were able to be like, hey, we'll give you Moses Moody, Monty Moody, and
Moses Moody. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Moses Moody and draft capital and J. Mike in a cash dump to the Bulls. The Bulls might be like, we'll give you Alex Caruso. And then Alex Caruso and Dante DiVincenzo off the bench, that improves kind of their caliber there. What do you think about the Warriors trade options and how it could impact Denver?
To me, they're the scariest one. They just have all those players. I do wonder, last year when they wouldn't trade Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, and obviously Wiseman. I think Wiseman had already lost some of his value by last year. But I think when they didn't do those last year, you kind of thought, well, let's see what they bring next year. And I think all of those guys are just more or less what I expected them to be. I like Kuminga. He's the one piece that I actually think would be as an intriguing piece. But like, what is Moses Moody's value right now?
I think it's still pretty decent. Like, he's shown flashes. I think it's more a matter of like he hasn't been able to be a guy that's brought a plus to them, and it's hard. I think I also don't know how much of a fit he is in the system. He's fit pretty well, but I don't know if they feel like that.
I think it's so funny how we talk about these things. Like, I think it's pretty good. Like, what do you mean pretty good? Better than Bones Hyland?
In terms of fitting in with the system?
No, I'm just saying as a prospect. Like, a team is like,
God, man, it's not even comparable. Like, I'd way rather have Moses.
While he makes one shot a game for both this year and last year with no improvement, no efficiency on it. Like, it's wild. He barely plays. He plays basically garbage time, but it has a better value.
You think Bones? So you think Bones is better than Moses Moody?
No, I'm just saying this is a funny way to talk about basketball. Like, a player that literally hasn't played other than garbage time or hard spot minutes here or there when the team has been missing everybody and they lose by 20. He averages no points, takes no shots, puts up no stats.
Moody had some good stretches in the playoffs last year, actually.
What's that?
Moody had some good stretches in the playoffs last year, actually. When they hit what?
So you know who else did? Bones Hyland against the goddamn Warriors. I just tell you, this is an insane way to talk about it. I'm not even saying you're wrong. I'm just saying this is an insane way to talk about these things. That's like me. He's almost like Zeke Naji was last year or something, where it's like, I think he's good. He hasn't really played, and there's no numbers to back it up, but I think he's good.
Okay. So what's like a move for the Warriors that would concern you?
I mean, you mentioned one of them, like an Alex Caruso, trying to get another player like that that's like a top 7 guy. And then I don't know, because I don't know the names of the play. Like, even some of the lesser tier players. To me, the Warriors have, first of all, they have the number 1 starting 5. Even even including Denver in that, they have a better starting 5 in terms of net rating when they're on the court together. Whether or not that group will have a long enough runway to play, because Steph Curry will be out and this or that, we'll see. But they have the number 1. So now you're talking about, can you just get like 3 more guys that can fit into the rotation? I think Dante DiVincenzo has, over the course of the season, become a Warriors player, as I'm not surprised he would. He's got that skill set. So you've got 6. You add a 7th, you add an 8th. That's where I think you start to look at them and go, can they survive their bench minutes just the same way Denver needs to? Can they? And if the answer is yes, then they're going to win a championship.
This is speculative. I haven't heard anything on this. I kind of wonder if there's a deal to be made with the Warriors and the Knicks. If they're able to get like Reddish, I could see succeeding there, just because like he's the type of guy that everyone's like, holy crap, they made Cam Reddish good. Also, like, Obi Toppin is on the table, and I really like Toppin.
Me too. I'm surprised Toppin's on the table.
Yeah, and so like if they were able to get Toppin in a package and with some of those vets for the Knicks, there's probably like a return there that could be worked out. And then again, all you're talking about is the Warriors are good enough at the top level. They just need to improve on them. Like, that's been their issue this year, is they're bad on the margins. Right. They just
need like 1 or 2 more players. They just need enough guys to be able to survive those stretches, because they're starting 5 and the combinations you throw out of those starting 5 are so good. Klay Thompson, 40, what was it? 12 threes last night.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing is, like, Denver still has to worry about Golden State. I've just kind of like baked that into all analysis, where I'm just like, yeah, it's gonna be tough. Like, the Warriors.
I think Denver can beat them right now, though.
I agree.
I know that's crazy. So they could lose to them too, but I think Denver can beat them right now.
Here's the thing: is like, can and will are 2 different things. Like, if you ask me, like, will Denver beat the Mavericks? Yeah. Will it be tough? Yes. Will the Nuggets beat the Warriors? I don't know. Can they? Yes.
I'm just saying right now, of course, Matt. I'm just saying right now, I feel like Denver Warriors, I would say 55-45 Denver. Like, I feel as confident as you can going up against a defending champ and a team of their pedigree. I feel is good, in large part because I think they only have 6 players, seven players. We count Poole, 7 players.
Agree. I totally agree. How about the Suns? If the Suns made a deal for OG Anunoby, what would you think about that?
Terrified. The Suns are another team that I think is great. I honestly, if there's only 2 teams that I actually worry about Denver, like, I think, as you mentioned, anyone can beat them. They're not so good that they're, but I do think that it's the Warriors and the Suns. And if the Suns added another player at the cost of, say, a Jay Crowder, or a cost of just players that they weren't really using anyway, yeah, that would be horrifying.
Yeah, I think that they're the team that I look at as like the team that we're gonna be like, oh no, because the Suns have been looking for. That's why the Suns haven't pulled the trigger on any of these deals. Is like they're waiting to make sure to try and put together something that's like a big deal. Like they want a big move. And this is why you've heard in recent days Chris Paul being mentioned in these conversations. Monty Williams was annoyed last night. It's like he shouldn't be involved in these conversations. He deserves more respect than that, which I'm sure like Monty doesn't want to lose Chris. But I do think the front office is looking at a long-term point guard option. And so like I could see Chris getting moved in a bigger deal and then them adding, moving Jay Crowder to try and get like a point guard replacement or whatever it winds up being. I think if you told me the Suns are exactly the same as they are right now after the deadline, wouldn't be shocked because those deals are very hard to pull off. It's really hard to pull off big deals, but that's what they're trying to do. Like the Suns are not like going in like, no, we're good. We feel like we can compete. They're absolutely like, let's make a major upgrade, especially with ownership having changed hands yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of why they sped up though is to make moves. So I expect them to make some kind of move.
The New Orleans Pelicans and Memphis Grizzlies are considered two teams that are both in the bidding for OG Anunoby. Now, again, I don't know if OG gets moved. Like, I just think the return on him is so high from the Raptors side that I'm still kind of like, I think it's more likely than not he doesn't get moved. It just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel to me like a Masai Ujiri move to move OG because he would just ask so much in return and nobody would be willing to meet it. But if the Pelicans were able to package together their young guys, Dyson Daniels, some of the other guys, and you add OG Anunoby in Herb Jones's spot or Trey Murphy's spot, how do you feel about the Pels? Does that change how that matchup looks to you on paper?
No, because they already have good wings. To me, the Pels are the one team that I'm like, I don't know why they're in the OG sweepstakes. He's good, but I'm just I'm really high on their wings that they currently have.
Yeah, I like Trey Murphy.
Except for Ingram.
Do what?
Except for Ingram.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if they pulled it, what if they did it Ingram for OG?
In a weird way, I might be more worried about him.
Yeah. Same. And then there's Memphis, and this one's really interesting. I don't know that they have the pieces to really pull it off, but if they put, and I'm really skeptical that Robert Parra in that market is going to want to pay Ja a max, Bane a max, Jaren Jackson Jr. a max, and OG. I just am very skeptical of that. But it might be a let's figure it out later deal. If the Grizzlies were to add OG, and that's their core four with Adams at 5, what do you think the Grizzlies look like in terms of a matchup with Denver?
They're way better. They're much scarier. I mean, that's the team. I don't think it sounds like they're not going to do it, although you never know. But that would be the team I'd most be concerned about. I think that he would complete them quite a bit.
Okay. Of those 4, who are you most worried about making a deal?
Man, as we were talking this through, I was going to say the Warriors, but I actually think it's the Suns.
Yeah.
The Suns are the team to me that are not fully dead. Like they've gone through a really, really rough season, but they're not fully dead. I do think they need some life brought back to them, though. Like when you've gone through 2 playoff runs and come up short like that, we've seen this with the Utah Jazz. We've seen this with a bunch of teams, even the Denver Nuggets back in the George Karl era. There is this like, is this who we are? But if you get a new piece, a Chauncey Billups or something, you get new life into you. You feel like, hey, this isn't the team of the past. The Raptors lost all those things. Then they get Kawhi Leonard. It's like, hey, we're a different team now. So with the Suns, they're the one team I look at that they could mix it up in a meaningful way, and they still have the core pieces that are so good.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll preview the Wolves game. We'll get to that when we come back here on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I'm going to tell you about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You just pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And they offer projections on any sport you watch: NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's and women's college basketball, WNBA, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals, and they're currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Tuesday. Programming note. Here's how it's going to go. If there is a breaking trade, if Bones gets dealt, we'll do an emergency episode. If Adam is available, then it'll be me and Adam. If Adam's not available, I will do it on my lonesome. And then our plan is tomorrow recap episode of the Wolves game, along with whatever news comes out on the trade front. Thursday, we're not going to do a morning show unless there's a deal, because there's no point in us doing a podcast and then having it be extinct in like 4 hours. So we will react to whatever the news is. I will do like a post. If there's no trade, I'll do a post trade deadline recap on Thursday night, normal show on Friday. That's what we're looking like for.
Real quick, I just want to ask one question before we go into the game. What do you think the chances are that there is a team right now looking to blow it up that is not publicly known that they're trying to do that? Do you think there's a team? For example, the Portland Trail Blazers. Like, is there any chance that they're like behind the scenes, look, man, we can't even fool ourselves. We're not close. It's time.
I don't think so. Right? It's not a known unknown. It's an unknown unknown. I think it's like with Portland, Dame has by all accounts been like, I made the decision. Like, I'm okay if I don't win a championship here. I want to do it. I just want to finish my career here. Like, that's been the declaration. And as long as Dame's there, you have the opportunity and obligation to try and build around him. Now, I could see them making a lot of moves. Like, from what I hear, Anthony Simons is untouchable, but that may not be the case. Like, they might be open to moving Simons.
That's the dumbest one to make untouchable. Like, to me, he's the number one you should make available.
Like, Jeremy Grant's going to be there. It's going to be Dame and Jeremy Grant. I think I've
heard a lot of Jeremy Grant rumors lately, so I don't know if that's true.
I would be very surprised.
That's why maybe they're not blowing it up. You're right. I think Portland is more likely just to rearrange the deck chairs.
Well, this gets into the thing is, I think instead of a blow it up team, there's a lot of teams, because we have so much parity. We don't have teams that are like, oh wow, we have no shot. But there's also very few teams that are like, we can do this. And so what you have right now, in my opinion, is you have a lot of teams, and like this is based off of conversations, that are like, we think we have something, but we need to switch it up. Like, we need to change something here. It's either it's stale or there's components that aren't working. Chicago, I think, is one. Like, Zach LaVine, you can call and make offers for.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can take pieces of a good team and try and find a combination that makes it work. And so I think they're, in your words, I think
what are the Atlanta Hawks talking themselves into right now, though? I understand what you're saying, this whole thing, like with Portland, but Portland can't talk themselves into winning a championship. They just can't. I think it's insane. But you're right that they have the loyal players, so they might not blow it up. But like, what's Atlanta talking themselves into? That they're going to go in and beat all four of Boston, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and whoever else, like back to get to the finals?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you always believe, in my experience, like, everyone always believes their team is better than they are.
Like, yeah, but that's a lot better. 27 and 20. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen at the deadline either. I'm just saying, I would not be that surprised if all of a sudden we saw, whoa, I didn't realize they were going to do that.
I think there are definitely like shocker moves out there, and you're starting to hear about it. Where, like, why would the Boston Celtics trade anybody? They've been the best team in the league since the beginning of the season. The Nuggets have caught them, but they've been the best team since the beginning of the season. And like, Peyton Pritchard was unhappy, and he was on the block for a little bit. And now Grant Williams is being aggressively talked about as being available. And the question is just like, there's a lot of guys that have to get paid. The pay decisions are always, I think, like, take precedence over, can you win a title? It shouldn't be that way, but that's how it is.
I'll tell you the last one that I don't think so, but it's worth mentioning, because I don't think the Lakers would do it now. But I do look at the Lakers and just think, like, what if they get down to the last 12 hours and they're like, we have no traction on anything. We're not close to anything. Nothing's happening. I just wonder if that situation, if there's like if they have a doomsday scenario in place with like, all right, go to the playbook.
For who?
Like Anthony Davis and LeBron, like a team that's just like, what are we doing? They're trying to add Tobias Harris and this or that. Like, you start to get to a point of desperation where in the last 12 hours, if you're like, okay, Tobias Harris is off the table, OG's off the table, Caruso's off the table. Like, we actually don't have anything that's going to move the needle at all. are we just going to play out this year, or do we try to go to another option? Again, I don't think they do, but it's at least a chaos grenade that could enter.
The Nuggets take on the Timberwolves tonight in a revenge game after losing on Monday. I think that's a funny way to look at it. Obviously, starters back tonight. Nuggets are significant favorites. They should be. I think the Nuggets probably I think the Nuggets. It's been a long time since I felt like I could trust Denver to do. Like I could be like, I don't know what they're going to. Usually, I'm like, I don't know how they're going to treat this game. I kind of think Denver smashes them tonight.
I think so too. I hope so as well. By the way, I think I saw that Gobert is questionable. Obviously, no Towns. So if they, no Gobert, they should win that one pretty comfortably. They played that team, by the way, without Gobert earlier in the year and were up 20. They ended up blowing it, if you remember that game. But in what was one of the weirder games of the season, by the way. But I think Denver rolls. They look like they're back to being comfortable. And assuming Denver plays their guys, they should win easy.
Yeah, I think so. And they should cover the number as well. Should be a dominant performance. I did best bets for Action Network last night. One of my colleagues it's a podcast called Buckets. You can find it if you like the wagers. He took Nuggets first quarter, and then another one of my associates took Nuggets first half. Like everyone's kind of like, yeah, the Nuggets should absolutely to roll this game. Who do you think has played well for the Wolves in the matchups so far this season? Like who have been the guys that you've been?
I mean, Naz Reid had that great game. None of these games can be analyzed, to be honest, Matt. All three of them. One, Denver didn't play any of their guys. Another one, Minnesota didn't play any of their guys, and Denver won big and then blew it. And then the other one was so early in the year. So to me, I don't know. Like I don't have an analysis for any of these games.
Jordan McLaughlin, I thought was a big boost for them in that last game. Obviously, again, it's versus the bench, but getting McLaughlin back is pretty big. His on and off numbers this season have been really good for the Wolves. I'm higher on the Wolves than most. My numbers have them pretty good, like really pretty good, like closer to top 10 than 20. I like this team quite a bit actually. When they got to figure out when Towns gets back how to make it work, but I think they're well coached. And I think they'll be up for this game. So Denver has to like really put the level down, but they've just been so dominant at home. Like they are just absolutely the most dominant team. I want to ask you this question though. So I was looking at some of the splits for the Nuggets. Last 15 games. Okay. They have 10 home games, 5 road games. The home defensive rating is 110.4, which is really good. The road defensive rating is 114.7, which isn't great. A lot of that's like, they've been resting guys in these kind of spots. Do you want to see them like put emphasis on the road games over the back half of this last quarter of the season, rather?
Yes, but only because there's not a lot of back-to-backs like this. The NBA, part of the NBA schedule is that they do front load it because they want the end to be competitive and healthy. So I think that Denver will likely try to, after the All-Star break, take all of the games a little bit more seriously. So yes.
So Kane thinks that we're depressed. Do you have some inside stuff that makes you so down? No, absolutely not. Like, it's okay. The Nuggets are going to be fine. The Nuggets are going to be just fine. The Nuggets are, in my opinion, the best team in the league right now.
Oh.
Like, it is.
Here's what annoys me is that every year we get to this point and every fan gives crazy trades. Like I got a Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid for Bones and Jeff in a second round or something like that. And it's like, okay, Denver's getting all the best assets and giving up all the worst ones in that trade. So I understand the bias to go towards, fans make unrealistic trades. But I think most of the time, the trades happen every year. Like Jeremy Grant went for nothing. And he's a good player, starting caliber player on a championship caliber team. Or at least he can be that. So I just get a little annoyed with the like, that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. When actually half the deals that happen, you're surprised by. You're like, wow.
I mean, here's I will say, like the value of everything is really messed up because like 5 picks for Gobert is insane. And so there's all these like, that's inflated the market. You could say that, but then like, look at what Jeremy Grant got traded for.
Nothing, a bag of peanuts. That's my point is there's always trades don't follow logic. So we analyze them on, yes, it would be logical for Bones to fetch this, or it'd be logical for this team to do that. But what actually ends up happening about 20% of the time is something that's like, wow, I did not see that coming for that value.
Oh, one more thing for you. Dallas got. Did you notice the Dallas game last night at all?
I mean, I just kept an eye on it, but I wasn't.
They beat the Jazz. Josh Green had 39 or had 30, and Jaden Hardy had 29. And they're still talking about maybe moving Christian Wood. Like, I kind of wonder if Dallas has another option to level up. That's another team I think to throw on the options.
Yeah,
a potential thing.
Also, like, I'm not too surprised. Like, Utah's obviously not been great since their really hot start, but also it's so hard to guard a team when it's like all new like that. You're either going to get blown out or you're going to sneak up on somebody. But
Kane is very anxious. Who's good for us that we can remotely get? I want to ask you this: Do the Nuggets need to make a trade?
I feel good about the Nuggets roster if they don't get anybody back. I would feel better if they got a player back that I believed in, but I think it's actually harder than people think. Denver's starting five is good. I think Bruce Brown and Christian Brown are locks to be in the rotation. I like Zeke Naji and Vlatko Cancar as the other two guys. If you've got another player in, it would have to be a player that to me does not directly step on the toes of any of those guys. Because if you did, I just don't think the return is that meaningful, especially with a short runway to kind of bring them in.
There's no – I don't think that there are any teams that are like, yeah, we're good enough right now. We don't need anything. I think every team is like, yeah, we really need to be better. And sometimes that's like, yeah, if we need to, we'll make a trade to make it better. But if not, like, we just need our guys to play better. And the second unit, everyone's like really worried about, which I understand. It's been bad. I get it. I just keep going back to this, guys. You're talking about at most by the end of a series, like sometimes it's like 6 minutes. It's 6 minutes you got to get through in the playoffs, and the margins matter. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying that, like, you shouldn't liquidate all of your future flexibility to try and, like, it's good. Is it good enough? Yeah. Is your margin of error enough? Maybe not. It's close, but the Nuggets starters are amazing.
Every good team, by the way, this is another one where everybody's inside the bubble. Every good team worries about their bench.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the way to. The only team that maybe doesn't is Boston.
New Orleans.
They've developed a really good, deep team, but every other team is like, can't trust them. I mean, look at the Warriors. Yeah. Look at the Warriors last year, by the way. Warriors, same thing last year. They were like, I don't know if our bench can do it. No, they did it.
So, all right, let's go wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Always great to hear everybody in the chat. I took a lot of hating in the chat today. I don't know why.
People are on edge, I think, because of this trade deadline. I'm guessing.
Seems like it. So we'll be back tomorrow to recap the Wolves game, as well as we'll get you up to speed on whatever the latest news is on the trade front. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on Locked On Nuggets.